Arts Festival in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we're here, our 1 o'clock panel is Mustangs, First Responders, and Veterans. Mustangs for Mental Health. We have Sky Epperson, we have Russell Granger, we have Tom Camacho, we have Brian Bassi, and we have Alex Adams. I'm going to let Alex start off, and she's going to introduce herself, talk a little bit about who she is and what she does, and then pass it around, and then we'll get the conversation going.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm with 10th Mountain Equine. Russell and I both are. And let's see, I'm Alex Adams, and we are from Lake George, Colorado. We have a horse rescue and equine assisted service center that is called 10th Mountain Equine, and the location it actually exists at is Granger Equine, and this is in Lake George, Colorado. We do a lot of different things with equines. We have a veterans program where we invite people to come up, and we have both a 1-day program and an 8-week program. The 8-week program is only once a week for the 8 weeks. And in those programs, we teach people how to use horses to be able to understand how society views them and how they can use their physical body to be able to describe and understand better how they are viewed, and then how they may be able to change to be able to receive the interactions that they are interested in within society. We also train horses and do riding lessons and invite children. We have groups like Boy Scouts come. And in general, our purpose is to be able to help relieve stress, to be able to help people feel more wellness. And I think one of our goals is to be able to help the society be able to create wellness programs that will be accepted in various assorted groups like emergency first responders and veterans and active duty military, so that they can receive assistance so that they continue feeling well, but they don't have to have any stigma of having to do therapy as though something was wrong. So this is our panel that is going to be discussing Mustangs and veterans and first responders, and basically how horses can help us all.
Hello, my name is Russell Granger, and as Alex said, I'm also with 10th Mountain Equine. Alex is more on the clinician side. I'm more of the behind the desk person, and I pick up a lot of poop. So my background, I was a volunteer firefighter for 15 years, and my real job, I still am a district court judge. And so we've used, at 10th Mountain Equine, we've done presentations for the Colorado Judicial Conference to all the judges in the state on how to use horses and equines to help with people on probation, help people with substance abuse issues. And one of the things that we've done at 10th Mountain Equine, one of our directors is Dr. Albuquerque. She is fairly well known for her groundbreaking activities, and she has a number of peer-reviewed papers on how we know that equine-assisted therapy or equine-assisted activities works, besides just talking to somebody and saying, well, I feel better. That's very subjective. We focused a little bit more, partly because of my background and because of Dr. Gerke, a little bit more on objective analysis that we can use to prove, I think, beyond any doubt that it works, and have an objective, scientific, verifiable method to do that. We can talk about that using a heart rate variable to do that, so that it's not just, I think it works, I feel better, but I know this works. When we first approached the judiciary to utilize this for probation, that was our first question is, do you have any evidence-based research to verify that this works? Because we're not going to fund something, we're not going to employ something that don't know actually works. And so this method with using heart rate variables proves that, because you can't fake it. It's just the way it is. Anyway, Sky.
Hi, I'm Sky Epperson with the Mustang Adoption Academy, and we use a scientific-based horsemanship to gentle our Mustangs, and along that journey, we discovered that it's not all that different than what mental health professionals would use when they're trying to work directly with humans. And what we found is if we could just invite a veteran into our program to learn brain-based horsemanship and not be really a mental health therapy program, as far as the advertising, that they can learn a little bit more acceptance of that program, because they start identifying the tolerance levels of the horse and how they react when they are over tolerance or under tolerance, and what those things might also mean to them, their family, their community, their coworkers, and et cetera. And we see some big changes in their lives through that program.
Just going to warn you, mine's going to be a little triggering. If you're somebody that is struggling with suicide, this will be a little bit raw. My name is Brian Browsey, and I'm here representing Who's. I'm an Army infantry veteran. September 22nd, 2021, my son stuck a .308 rifle to the roof of his mouth and pulled the trigger. Killed him. Lost my son, he was 16 years old. Prior to that, 4/8 of 2019, I stuck a 12-gauge shotgun to the roof of my mouth. Blacked out on a bottle of Jack. As I went to pull the trigger, my phone rang. I looked down, I passed out, woke up in the morning still wanting to die. Never talked to my kids about it. Never talked to my family about it. Never told anybody. After my son took his own life, I found myself in the deepest, darkest, blackest pit humanly possible. And that the only way you really understand that is if you're someone that happened to have been there. My brother then passed away shortly after. At this point, I was a dead man walking. I was a shell. I was a skeleton. I felt like I had no soul. Nothing was left of me. Went to my brother's funeral, and a friend of mine, an Iraq Marine veteran, was the only one in the entire world that noticed something was wrong with me. Nobody knew. He came up to me at my brother's funeral and he said, "Ryan, I need help." Felt like I just got drop kicked by Chuck Norris. Nobody in the world knew. Nobody knew that I had planned on killing myself after my brother's funeral. And he came up to me and he said that to me. He said, "We need to talk." A day later, I sat down with him before I headed home, and he told me about him going through an equine program for veterans. Not the same one that I'm here representing. I'm here representing Who's out of Swanton, Ohio. But he said, "We need to get you in one. We need to find one. There's got to be one around you." He looked, because I kind of put it off. I had already made up my mind that I was going to take my life. He found Who's located in Swanton, Ohio. I applied, filled out the application for it, got accepted, and through, which I'll gladly answer questions about the program if you have any specific, but I ended up bonding really with a Mustang named Ellie. We call her Ellie with a belly. And through the teachings of Amanda Howell, who is the founder of Who's, she also is the CEO and founder of Equine Wisdom Institute, as well as my bond with Ellie with a belly. Today I'm proud to be alive, and I now do everything I can in my power to bring awareness. My daughter's rode horse, but I was never involved in the equine community prior, and now I'm dedicated to the equine community because, quite frankly, horses saved my life. That bond was something that I can't even explain, but it saved my life, and I wish that more services like what I went through or what these folks do would be made more public and would be open to more people than just veterans, because I feel people from all walks of life would benefit. If you have any questions or
Camacho. Originally from Chicago. I was in the Air Force, a jet mechanic in the Air Force. I was always a horseman, so I rode hunter jumper and race horses on the track and all that good stuff. But got into equine assisted therapy a little bit, not as clinically as some of you have, but working with gangbangers in Chicago. So we brought the horses out, and these bad gangbangers came out, and they're like, all of a sudden they see this big huge animal in front of them, and they're all like little boys and girls. So I saw the difference that this work can do. I'm also a grant writer and a strategic planning consultant for nonprofits, so I figured I could kind of mix that and bring that together and kind of help build some of these nonprofits. We've got the VA now looking at equine assisted therapy, which is a very exciting thing because to bring that into the VA, it was very closed. I don't want to say they're closed-minded, but they're kind of backwards way of thinking prior. It's nice to see this opening up and see them looking at this as a positive thing. So that's kind of why I'm sitting on this panel, is kind of just taking from the funding end of things and from the planning end of things for how nonprofits can build that going into the veteran community, and then, like you had said, other communities like where I work with, with the gangs and things like that. So that's it. If you guys have questions about that after, or during.
Questions? I just want to throw in a little bit because I kind of glossed over WHOS itself. WHOS is a healing of our veterans through equine services. And so Amanda has developed, we'll say a method, because I suck at my words, of a process that teaches you who you are, shows you who you really are inside, promotes living your authentic self. And what is discovered through it is that the traumas that have happened to you in your life, basically from birth to age 12, sets in stone how you handle traumas later on in life as an adult. So she really teaches that so that you can get to the source of why am I suicidal from these things? Why does it bring me to that point? Why did I feel a bunch of guilt and shame? Why did I feel like I wasn't a good father? Why did I struggle through those topics? She has a documentary that'll be airing, I guess Sunday is the documentary, right? On Sunday. She gives a heck of a lot of information in the documentary that's a little more detailed about what I'm talking about, but learning some of those things helped me in processing it. So understanding who I really am and what I need to be me, and to why basically coming to terms that my son's suicide wasn't my fault. And that it doesn't mean I'm a horrible father, like coming to those terms, because really what it was, losing a child, it's one of those things that you don't understand how that feels unless you're someone who has lost a child, is extremely difficult, but when you are living with that guilt and shame of your child took their own life, that's really what drives you to the bottom. It's not necessarily that your child died, it's the feelings that come into play because of that. And, I dealt with a lot of, I guess a lot of times where I felt I was selfish, as a father, or I wasn't a good enough father to my children. I was one of those parents that was very harsh. I was raised by a single mother who had to teach me how to be a man, and the best way she could teach me how to be a man was, men, don't cry, take care of your little brother, man up, get over it, walk it off, that kind of mentality that, and it's not her fault at all, she's doing the best that she can, and she's also from a generation where you don't express those things, and especially men. And I think we have a real epidemic in this country of men's mental health, and it's okay to talk about it, doesn't make you less of a man. I'm not saying that you gotta be soft. A man needs to be a man. But it's okay to talk about when you're not doing well. And who's really helped instill some of those things in me, helped me realize the sides of me that were fantastic as a father, And I walked out on the other side understanding that I have so much more to give to my children, that I have so much to teach them. And the last thing I want to do is exit this world. And then my daughters still struggle with the same thing because now they lost their brother and they lost their father.
Yeah, so there's probably not anything better than Brian telling what his story. I mean, that is the stories that we are seeing come through, I think, all of the places here. And I could talk for oblivion, but Brian is telling you what happens when you can put equines, veterans, people struggling with mental health in front of the horse. And we all have a little twist on how we do it, but ultimately it's successful. And, you know, we went from changing horses' lives to now we change horses and people's lives. And those people also get to change horses' lives. So it's just to me, like, that's my mental health therapy is being able to be a part of that.
Did you have a question?
I do, but I can wait until you ready.
Go ahead.
I guess this is a question for Brian. So I've been involved in horses my entire life. Rode other jumpers as a child, and then galloped race horses, and also evented professionally. So I have a 17-year-old son, and when he was 15, 16, he attempted suicide a couple of times. And I remember last year when he came home, and I still have horses in my life, I still own horses, work actively on a horse farm. And when he came home from the hospital last year, I would make him get up with me in the morning to go feed the horses. And, you know, I don't know, it was just instinctive, like I wanted him to do that and spend the first hour of his day with the horses. And you know, like it's hard to say that it made a definitive difference, but he was definitely, like, there was something in him opened up after a morning with the horses. It was really different from days when he wouldn't come to the farm. So I guess my question, and this all sort of goes into this question, I guess for Ryan, because, you know, I understand everything that you're saying about you know, working hard with Amanda, but can you give an example of like exactly like what type of direction his horses was for you? Are there specific moments that you can think of, like how did it help? Because it's part
So-
of my understanding too.
It's going to sound a little woo-woo. I smile because it replays in my head so many times. I mean, so often, and there was multiple occasions working with Ellie that really stand out, but the one in particular that was the most powerful was day one. Well, it's the first morning you're there. We go out and we do something called like CCT. It's like a meditation with horses. And we sit in a camping chair out in like the pasture, and the horses just do their thing, and you just sit there. And you sit there quietly, you think about whatever you're thinking about, you know, she kind of gives you a little, we'll say guidance into the meditation. And then the horses interact with whoever they interact with. During my experience, Ellie had walked up and basically it was almost like guarding me, was over top of me, and she'll probably kill me for saying it, but Ellie actually took her front, sorry, I don't know, I'm bad at words. Took her front left leg, and actually rested it right on my left. No pressure, no, you know, and talking with Amanda about it, she was so nervous, like, oh no, whatever, you know, like, Brian needs to learn to get out of the way, right? But, you know, Ellie put her leg right on my lap, and it's gonna sound crazy, I know. In that moment, I felt my son was there, and it felt like my son was giving me a hug saying it's going to be okay, and that he's okay. And when she did that, she literally held it there for like 5 minutes. Ellie didn't move, she just, there's picture proof. she literally just did that to me, and then before and after, she would literally put her head on top of my head, and just like, it was almost like being given a hug. And in that moment, that's what I needed. I had felt this like tremendous loss, you know, my son was gone and I just felt like a piece of me missing. You know, my son was my mini-me. Like when you looked at him, you knew it was my son. That he had the same personality. He talked the same way I did. He messed with his sisters the way I messed with them. You know, messed with everybody. You know, and that's the main one that stands out. There's several that had occurred during my time there. I guess another one would be I was. It's so hard to explain without the documentary does a much better job than I do. But there's some exercises that we do with the horses, and some of them was putting. It's called like your life area. So there's like vocational, financial, family, spiritual. And you put these things that represent kind of your values or what reminds you of like vocational, like what stands out in your life. You put that item in that circle, and then you walk your horse. You don't even, I mean, the horse kind of walks you around, but you walk around with these things and see what the horse interacts, and then you kind of break down what did that mean to you, and why did the horse interact with it or not interact with it. And that energy, the way the horse picks up on who I am, like almost. I'm bad with words, again, sorry people, but it was, that horse knew who I was. Ellie knew who I was. Like it didn't matter how I tried to be, where nobody knew I was suicidal, nobody knew that I wanted to die, nobody knew that I was so depressed, nobody knew that, you know, the skateboard meant the world to me in that spot, right? Ellie, though, would come up and she literally nudged the skateboard. You know, and it just was like, man, it forced me to actually like accept who I am and my trauma, what I went through in my life, and like understand that it's okay. And I couldn't hide that like from the horse because the horse knew everything. You can't wear a mask on a horse. The horse is going to see right through you, and that's what I learned. Horses see right through to who you really are. And not being able to hide those parts of me forced me to actually deal with those parts of me. And Ellie, Mustang Ellie did that. Ellie was nothing.
I'll add just another example that happened in our program. We had a veteran come in day one. You know, we're just kind of introducing to the herd and horses that we're going to work with. And I just kind of skipped one and didn't tell him why. And then of course he's like, well, what about that guy? I'm like, don't worry about that guy. You are never going to work with that guy. That's the most traumatized horse that we've ever brought in. And it's going to be a long time before he sees another human other than me. Of course, when you do that to some people, then that's the horse, right? And so every time he came, he would ask something about whiskey. And as his horsemanship was able to improve, and I did feel, you know, there was some safety, and he continued to bug me and ask me 20 times a session, can I work with whiskey? Can I work with whiskey? Finally one day I said, well, if you want to work with whiskey, he's out in the pasture now, bring him in. And this was a horse that, to back up, the veteran asked me a question one day, because when whiskey was on pasture, he said, why does whiskey is never in the pasture with the other horses? He has access to them, but if they're in one pasture, he will be in the other. And if they move to him, he moves to them. I said, whiskey's so traumatized. Not only does he not want to be with humans, he doesn't even want to be with his own herd. And then as it went, that day that I told him that he could go bring in whiskey, he made a connection with that horse that I couldn't make. And whiskey, you know, I could bring whiskey in, but I'd connect with him and he would follow me, but he would only follow me about 10 steps at a time. He followed that man all the way in. And once that veteran saw that he could make a connection with that horse, and that horse could try to step into this world that he doesn't really want to be in. In our wrap-up, when he finished his sessions with us, he said he needed a horse like whiskey. He needed somebody that didn't want a herd to show him that he could be part of the herd. And in that man's time with us, whiskey even even started to be part of the herd with horses.
So, this is gonna open up a whole other level that nobody here's heard before from me. Will you ask the very last question that you asked, the actual question, to one more time? Or something like it?
I think it was.
Like, how do you feel inside when the change happens?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is all new news to everybody. So, the first time I tried to kill myself, I was 9 years old. I continued to try to kill myself into my 40s. I've always had horses in my life from the time I was about 6 years old. I didn't own horses. My family didn't have horses until I was like 10 or 11. But I would go out to the local stables and I would go out and play with the horses, take lessons and all of that. When you have that darkness inside of you, you have this empty space, this place that maybe once was filled, but maybe never was. You feel like something's missing. When the horse comes in to interact with you, and I can't tell you honestly whether it's because the horse is a big animal and it decides to spend time with us little animals, or whether it's because the horse is consciously aware of trying to help change an energy because they don't like the way it feels. But when you have those moments, the horse fills up what's missing. It completes you. And it allows you to breathe for the first time sometimes that you've ever felt. And so perhaps that may add a few more words into that. Would you say, Brian, that describes kind of anything like, everyone has a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was, for me, it was like filling that void. It wasn't necessarily filling the void, it was, Ellie made me feel my son, that he wasn't gone. Like he's dead, he's gone, right? Like physically he's gone, but he's still a big part of who I am, he's still a big part of my life, and he's still there with me. And it doesn't matter what you believe, I'm not going to go into, spiritual stuff or whatever, but regardless of what you believe, my son Dominic had an impact on my life for the positive, not just the negative, and it's suicide. And Ellie brought that to me. Ellie made me feel my son's presence, something that was completely blocked out prior to that experience with the horse.
Okay, so do we have any more questions?
One second, okay, two-part. I'm a retired 911 dispatcher, 27 years married to law enforcement. So that's my history. But, so there are, dispatchers are the lost and forgotten first responders out there. Have you ever, or any organization that is similar to this, have gone to the national conferences that they have and do breakaway, like, clinics there? And then the second part is there a national organization that you can go to that lists stores, and if you're in that area, it's there, in this area?
These are building. There are, I believe, some of these places that do exist already.
So horses for mental health, will have a good, we're actually not a part of their programming, but they will give a good list of things. Many mental health professionals now are starting to have a good understanding of the equine and what it can do, and partner with programs like ours. Like our program partners with Touchstone Therapy, and we always have a mental health professional on site when we're doing any sessions with the veterans. And so it's becoming a much more, 20 years ago, you would have had to really search for these programs. And I also know that I think the Mustang Summit is actually working on a directory that hopefully will be out over the next year or so. If you have a specific need, find us, find one of us, we'll help you find it in your area. I mean, it's kind of the same way Brian got here. His buddy found a place in his area.
Yeah. Well, it's because we do have national conferences. There's one called in the Netherlands, Albuquerque. to and do breakaway clinics, because I think it would be very, very popular among dispatchers.
Yes.
Yeah, and absolutely, like, if you could get one of us that information, then we can kind of present a program to them.
Yeah, 'cause we're the last ones to actually be tagged as having problems.
I want to let you know I used to be a dispatcher for the fire department where I grew up. And yes, we would love to. Please reach out, because absolutely, this is what we're trying to do. It's part of what the Mustang Summit is about, is to be able to spread the word, to be able to make access, to be able to create a network that we can all be able to benefit from, the horses and the people. And we'd love to come down and do some of those sessions. We actually are working on, like I mentioned, we're working on creating a wellness template, as it were, so that individuals who are active duty and who exist within a work environment where there is a stigma towards therapy, and to be able to create what actually is therapy that is accessible and not considered therapy by the majorities or the powers that be, or things along those lines. Does that? So yes, we have started the outreach with bringing that into accessibility. The reason for doing in the judges conference that we did the presentation on equine assisted therapy and how that works is in order to be able to get these services available to everybody through all the different organizations that we might want to look at. We need to be able to present it. And what you were describing is exactly what we had done, and this is the way to do it. We have to get all the people who aren't involved in the horses, who don't feel like we already do about the horses and about the way that they can help us and make us all better. So yes, absolutely. And anybody you ever hear of who's like, well, I don't know, I'd like to help. You know, we got this group of people and I'd really like to help them and I don't know what we can do. There's people, we are doing, the Mustang Summit is trying to reach everywhere around North America and expand, I'm sure, beyond that if that's what organically grows. And so being able to get to these places, we have more and more people around the country who are closer to all these little places because we're just spreading and growing organically all the time. And so it does, yes, please, everybody, reach out. These kinds of things, when we can get them into the communities, that's when we're going to be able to make the changes. If the communities don't know about it, there's nothing that we can do.
What we've done with the judges is we had an initial presentation to discuss the physiology of equine assisted therapy and how we know it works. And then after we had gone through that presentation, then we brought in Marty, which is one of our ponies, and we all went out onto the lawn, and we had Supreme Court justices that were doing equine therapy, and it worked really well. And what I would like to do briefly, when we're speaking to a group like this, we're all horse people. I mean, I assume all of us are, otherwise.
Or at least horse lovers.
Or horse lovers, yeah. And when we hear the stories that we've heard today, we all intuitively know, yes, this works. But when Alex and I first approached the probation department, and we had a meeting with the probation director and with the county attorney, they came back pretty stone-faced and said, that sounds really nice, but how do I know it works? And what we've done with 10th Mountain Equine and with Dr. Gerke is through several peer-reviewed papers, we can prove to you that it works. The way we do this is by monitoring your heart rate and what is called a heart rate variable. Now, a heart rate variable is different than a pulse. If you take your pulse, you get 70 beats a minute, 80 beats a minute, whatever. The heart rate variable measures the time between your beats. And that's the T-wave at the top. We measure that distance between the T-waves. And if the time distance between the T-waves is very uniform, it's a sign of stress. It's kind of, it's counterintuitive. But when it's very uniform, it's a sign of stress. When it's not uniform, it's a sign of relaxation. And a sign of balance. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you will take and tap your knee or whatever, and you're doing it really fast, that's more stressful, and it's very uniform. If you do like that, that's more relaxed, and that's kind of the way your heart works as well. And so we can measure that, and by measuring that, we can determine, is this person more relaxed now or more stressed now? And so what we have done in our research is you have somebody come in, you measure their heart rate variable. Then they go through an equine assisted therapy session, and then you measure their heart rate variable at the end. We do a 9-week program, and you continually do that, and you build a database, and you say it's consistent. People at the end of a session are more relaxed than they are at the beginning of the session. And then people at the end of a 9-week program, when they first come into the session, they're more relaxed than they were when they first started the program. And we've done some research that this is something that's not fleeting. Even a month later, when they come in, they're having benefits from it. And so we can objectively say, this works, because you cannot change your heart rate. You can't physically say, okay, I'm going to make it all uniform. You can't do that. So it's much more than subjective. And we also do a subjective test, and Hannah's test, if you're familiar with psychology. It's just a measurement of 1 to 5, who I feel better rated from 1 to 5. We do that as well. The interesting thing, when we measure the heart rate variables and the PANS test, people are actually becoming more relaxed before they know they're becoming more relaxed. They'll take the PANS test and they'll say, I don't really feel a whole lot different, but yet their heart rate variables say physiologically they are different. They are doing better. So the benefits from the equine therapy begin to take place even before the people even know it. So, as far as your question, we would, I'm sure Sky would too, we would be more than happy to do that and go to a conference like that.
And let me just add one more thing. If you are in a situation where you're presenting something like this, it doesn't matter where you're from or what you're doing, or if you've talked to us in the last 5 years or whatever, know that our website, 10ME, that's 10thmountainequine.org, so that's 10me.org. You can go in and we have research right in there, and you can immediately pull it up and show it to anybody. So it's right there, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to do it, it's there, it's already proven, it's been published. And everyone, feel free to use that.
And it's the research we have on that, say it's peer reviewed, it's not just writing an article and then putting an editorial in the paper type thing. This was a scientific peer reviewed, and if you Google Ellen Gerke, Dr. Gerke, you'll find a lot of articles, a lot of peer reviewed work.
I just wanted to add too that Hooves has added on a youth program as well. So they do a couple during the summer. They have, I think, about 3 of them. Each one's for different age groups, but they actually have added a youth program, which I'm really excited to see. And I'm hoping that this next year I can convince one of my daughters to go in. But they have added that, and they, just to touch back, that Horses for Mental Health does have a pretty, I believe, a pretty substantial list from around the country. I don't know what each one does. I couldn't tell you how many are on there. I just see the list, it's long. But, and as far as proof that it works, luckily you know all that stuff. I don't know any of that. I can just tell you as somebody who's no longer suicidal, and I'm not the only one that's gone through an equine service, mental health service, but specifically Hooves. I think there's been several hundred of us that have gone through hoops at this point. And I think the last number I saw was like 98% reduction in suicidal ideation. And that has a big part to do with the horses. I'm not scientific, and I'm bad with my words, but I'll tell you that I credit a lot of that to the horses themselves. And Hoops is proud to have quite a few Mustangs on property, and it's something that I think the documentary does the best at explaining how it all goes down. But the proof is in the pudding. It's how I say it. And I'm not the only one walking this earth because of horses.
And as far as bringing those kinds of programs in, we're right now working with the Albuquerque Police Department and the Rio Rancho Police Department just to get that message to their heads and have them be listening for that, so that when there is those conferences, you can invite them to those conferences and you will actually hear it instead of it just being a brand new thing. Well, like, for sure that's going to work. So really, I go to the sheriffs, I go to the chief of police and things like that, and have these discussions with them and bring a little bit of research with me and how it has impacted, and it works. It's starting to work here.
Yeah,
So.
one person is.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So I had interviewed this woman, her name is Lynn Ryan Phipps, and she has 5 centers across the country, and she developed a protocol of integrated equine therapy. And she's one of her main centers is in Rhode Island, that's right near Brown. So now Brown uses all of her studies, vice versa. So they follow her. So they actually have, and American University, which is one of her centers outside Washington, D.C. They follow her, and they have seen the incredible, the actual examples of scientific examples of how horses heal people. And she has a huge veteran program, and her thing now is her drive right now is because she's seen how her work has helped so many veterans, for them to get insurance. If the government could just accept this and not fight it, and have insurance for veterans to have access to these programs, they would see the incredible, the wonderful effects that this has, and how, versus the traditional therapy, it just doesn't really work. But it's just convincing the government, talking to representatives, talking to senators, talking to other, for insurance to happen, which is so important. And
So one of the things that I've been working on, or I should say recently started working on, is actually going through congressional leadership and working on what I'm trying to do specifically is for equine services nationally to be recognized by the VA as alternative treatments, because clinical stuff doesn't work for everybody. Clinical doesn't work for me. You can't pump me with a bunch of, I'm already anti-pharmaceutical, but that's not neither here nor there. But, you can't pump me with a bunch of medicine and turn me into a zombie. It's not going to help. It's going to prolong. And what happens when I don't take the medicine, I'm right back to where I was, right? So we're doing a really big push right now with several partners and some military in trying to, bully our way into the VA to be recognized as an alternative treatment that hopefully then the VA will cover cost, through that they'll cover the cost, because this stuff's expensive. This isn't, it's about, for who's, I believe we're just under $5,000 per veteran that goes through, and the veteran pays nothing. It's 100% nonprofit, funded by donors. Local community comes out to cook meals, or restaurants donate. So, it's really important that we start getting this out. And like he said, scientifically, I'm saying proof is in the pudding. This stuff works. And I think it's high time that we get the approvals through the government and the VA to offer these alternative treatment methods, regardless of what program, whatever, equine therapy works, and it's proven.
Yeah, and just,
I was just gonna jump into the VA because I actually, I'm from Pennsylvania and I worked in the Coatesville VA combat,
Many times.
the combat PTSD unit, so unit 2B, whatever it's called. And I had to worm my way in there as an English professor, and I had to convince them to let me run the literature discussion sessions with the veterans in that unit. And I think it's either the biggest or one of the only inpatient combat PTSD units on the East Coast. And I was really, really, really connected with the veterans in that unit for a year, the year I ran it until COVID hit and everything was shut down. And that was sort of my question is do you have partnerships with VAs? Because it's really, really hard. It took me a year just to get in there and to convince people to give it a try. And then once I had run a session in there for I think I was in there for a month, and the veterans were choosing to come to my session. And, it was like proof is in the pudding, because once the unit and the VA hospital saw it was working, they ended up buying the books. And then the therapists started recommending that the veterans come to my session. So it's almost like they have to see it in action, and they have to see it being effective before they'll put any energy or effort or funding into it. So I guess, my question, what does that partnership look like? How does that go?
So at least with who's, and I'm sure it sounds like you had some kind of partnership going on with your local VA, was that, and I'm sure you guys probably have some type of literature, at least in the VA. It's pretty much right now, organization goes out and does the outreach to their local VA, and then they allow them to put literature in there, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing more than that. We're fortunate enough that we're working with out in Ohio, we're working with the Lucas County Veterans Service Commission. So they see a wide range of people, and then they also happen to have an office in the VA, in our local VA. So we kind of got a little bit of a better presence, but only at that one location. It's probably the same for you guys. You have your closest VA probably. You might have one a little bit further out. But that's all it really is right now, so it's up to each organization that's a part of that does these kinds of things to kind of do their own push within the VA. What I'm trying to do is actually get on the national level the VA sponsoring the soldier, the Joe, I call them Joes, to get the Joe into these services and funded through the VA healthcare to do it, because it does cost quite a bit of money. But on a national scale, not enough. There's not zilch.
I would just love to continue talking about it. Just to see if there's, just to find out more and see if there's something.
And I'm from the Pennsylvania, actually. So.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am.
Oh,
Went to
God.
War with me.
I'm an hour away.
Yeah,
it was, so Coatesville, obviously. I live in Coatesville.
Okay. Still right now?
Yeah, right now.
Right on.
And honestly, I was so impacted by my work at the VA, and I wasn't part of it. I just really was an outsider trying to convince them to believe in me. But the veterans really believed in it. A lot of them were Marines, and it was just like the connections were one of the most intense connections I've ever had. And it was at the time when I was very actively eventing and had three horses. And I came to my head, I was like, how can I get these vets in this unit once they're discharged to come to my farm? And and part of me was like, okay, this is so far beyond what I can do, but I also something amazing and magical could happen, because I knew these guys and I knew my horses and I knew the experience that I've had with horses, and horses saved my life as well multiple times, but I just could not figure out how to make it happen. So get too close so we can talk.
When this is over, let's touch base with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My daughter's training in Coatesville for eventing.
No.
Yeah, my oldest daughter. So eventing has helped her through the loss of her brother.
Oh my gosh. So I just lived down the street from Boyd Martin.
Okay, that's who's training her.
She's training with Boyd?
Yeah, he just did the Olympics, right?
Yeah,
that's her trainer.
I trained with Boyd and I trained with Philip Dutton, like all of the Olympians. So she's just down the street from me.
Yeah, that's who she's training for.
That's good.
Training her.
Wow. Okay. That sent chills down. Okay, we need to talk.
those programs within the VA. So if you can get in the door there and you can get them on your side, that's going to help with your funding and getting that program in. So
It's really going to take a major push from the public as well as organizations like all of ours to really team up and do a big push nationally, in federal government as well as your local state governments. It's going to take a team effort to get that done. No one organization, no one lobbyist, no one, they're not going to be able to get it done. But it takes a lot of push from the public. So the public needs to be writing letters to their senators and the Congress, to the House members and the senators in order to help do that. And that would really help in the next coming months to be doing that. Regardless of political beliefs, you got new people taking seats, and they're going to be at least, you got 2 years of solidness of these people not going anywhere. That really gives, that you can hit that ground running at that right now. And you have this stretch of time to be able to help get that through. And this is really a bipartisan thing, right? This isn't a Democrat, Republican, independent thing. This is something everybody can agree on. So it doesn't matter what politician, go after all of them, every single one of them. Write your letters, do anything that you can to help get that word out, that we need a serious push for the VA to be accepting of alternative mental health treatments.
Let me just say one more thing. So I've been really lucky. I was the original equine assisted therapy provider and therapeutic riding provider for Eagle County, Colorado. And it is really not what you know, it's who you know, and I cannot impress that strongly enough on anyone. Our VSO, our Veteran Service Officer for Eagle County, happens to be Veteran Service Officer for four counties around. And so she will bring people from, and I now live outside of that county, but I still continue serving. And so I come in from 3 hours away. She brings people from anywhere from local communities to 3 hours away that come in to do individual therapy sessions with me. And if it weren't for that one person, there are dozens of people who would be having those services. And so tell everyone. Horses for Mental Health has a reach of like 34 million people. Tell everyone. Never stop talking about it. Anytime you have no idea who likes horses. Stacey Westfall just happened to have gotten seen by Ellen DeGeneres, or someone who, or Oprah, or someone who then noted her, and it was just her seeing that one person seeing her suddenly spread it to everybody. If we can just find that one person or all those people, individuals, and just start just press this movement, be able to expand it, and be able to allow it to meet everybody. Do we have any other questions? We have our group here.
Yeah, like why we're working on the VA and getting people to know those things. You can't forget funding for the nonprofits. It's the only way we do it. All of us are offering our services for free to the veterans. And it costs to have these facilities. Insurance, when you talk about veteran, Mustang, adoption, is a real struggle. So that makes it real costly. So all of those things, we need funding to continue to do what we do.